Hey everyone, this amazing ESO Network show is brought to you by our fine sponsor, Amazon.com. Please remember to shop Amazon for all your geeky needs, no matter what time of the year it is. All you need to do is go to esopodcast.com/ESO Amazon, or click on the Amazon banner on the ESO Network webpage to go to our e-store. It's the best way to shop and the best way to support this program, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. Okay, that's enough of me babbling for now. Now on with your regular scheduled show.
Hello, Marvel Universe! The Earth Station MCU podcast is your home for all things related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Join our debrief as we discuss Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter, upcoming and past favorite Marvel movies, cosplay, comics history, toys, games, interviews, and all things MCU. Whether you're a hero or a villain, a new viewer, or have been reading comics since you were a kid, there's something for you on Earth Station MCU.
Hello, and welcome again to the Monster Sci-Fi Show podcast. I am your host, The Monster, back to give you another week of sci-fi news. And seems to be a running pattern because I'm also recording this again on a Sunday during my lunch hour, which I'm actually working today at the library, so fancy that. So I have another 5 more days of work before I get my next day off, so lucky me. But still, you have this podcast, so you should be grateful, because it's been busy for me. I can't believe the amount of work that I've been doing, but again, it's fun work. This past week, I did a Wonder Woman display, and you can actually see the picture on my Instagram page. So the Monster Sci-Fi Show is there. You can look at my kind of cheapy, inexpensive Wonder Woman display. But creatively, I think it's really cool. So nonetheless, before I even get into the big 3 topics, or even my tidbit news, yesterday was my only day off, and I really needed the day to kind of recover. So I played around with Hulu. And I did the free trial for the new Hulu live TV service. So I have a week to kind of play with this. Right off the bat, I was looking around. Hey, we have AMC. Is there The Walking Dead for this past season? No. Any season? No. There's Fear the Walking Dead. Like, I don't want that. There's Preacher. Yeah, I know, but I don't want that. I want The Walking Dead, at least for this past season. No, it's not listed there. So, kind of disappointed on that. But I did have Disney XD, so I started watching Rebels Season 3. So, yay for that. That was a kind of a cool bonus. And then late last night, my wife and I started watching a documentary called Becoming Bond. So this is a story of George Lazenby, who was the one and only James Bond on Her Majesty's Secret Service with Diana Rigg and Telly Savalas. So he's telling his story in this documentary, and it's all being acted out, kind of like if you know the format of Drunk History. So it's kind of like that. So it's not really kind of kid-friendly, but it's really well done, and I was very happy about that. And then there's another documentary that came out that I really want to see. It's called Batman and Bill. So this is dealing with the fact that you know that Bob Kane was the creator of Batman. Well, Bill Finger is also now known as the co-creator of Batman. So that's the kind of the documentary behind there. So if DC had that kind of problem, you know, Marvel also had their problems, like with Stan Lee and Spider-Man and Jack Kirby. So the exact same scenario on both ends. So, but again, I'm really happy with what I'm watching so far on Hulu. And I kind of like the TV experience. I don't know if I want to be spending $40 per month for it, but with all this good content that's coming on, I'm actually kind of happy with what's happening. So they may get my even more money down the road. So we'll see what happens with that. So before we even get started, a couple of tidbits that we have, which is that Inhumans, which is going to be coming out this fall, is scheduled instead of Tuesday night. It's going to be on a Friday night. Really good decision to put it there on a Friday night. No one watches TV, especially that kind of show, on a Friday night. So, and then Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I'll talk about that in a moment, is being moved to a mid-season replacement. So whenever we get those episodes, it's going to be basically a full run. There are going to be no breaks, which is kind of a nice thing for us to have if you're into that. Next bit of news, Jordan Peele is out of Akira, so he's looking to do some more independent projects, and I think there is one that he is doing with Bad Robot and HBO. I forget if it's going to be, I forget which author that he's looking to work with, but that's something that's currently in the works. Black Lightning trailer was also released during this week, and I put down Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance. Netflix is producing a new series based on this movie that I love growing up. And if you know this is a Jim Henson love project that is amazing to watch. Great score by Trevor Horn. But we're going to get the story that leads up to that. Kind of, I guess, the Rogue One to the Star Wars New Hope. But we'll see how this happens. But if they give us that kind of Muppet, I don't know how you want to call it, that kind of feel that it's going to be not CGI, but real acting through puppets and create that world, I'm more than happy to sit there and watch this completely. So I was going to make that one of my top threes, but again, I got way too much other things to talk about. So the big three is that the Orville, which is a new Seth MacFarlane sci-fi parody series, is coming to Fox. And as I mentioned last week, Star Trek Discovery has released their official trailer. I'm going to be talking a hell of a lot about that. And then finally, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4 is now officially wrapped. So I want to talk about that as well. So, doing things a little bit different. Gene and I, when we do our podcast, we usually do this together. And this week we're trying something a little bit different. Because of Seth MacFarlane and Star Trek, I wanted to have his input. So basically, he recorded himself and gave his thoughts about the Orville and also Star Trek Discovery. So I'm going to do the Orville trailer first, then play his reaction, and then I'll talk about that, and I'll do the exact same thing for Star Trek Discovery when we get there.
Ed, have a seat. I have good news. There's a ship available, the USS Orville.
Ever since I was a kid, I have wanted to serve on an exploratory vessel.
You're nobody's first choice for this job, but we have 3,000 ships to staff, and we need captains.
Can I have one of these mints?
Those are marbles. We're giving you one last chance.
I just want to say I am thrilled to be your new captain. I want this to be an efficient ship, but also one that you're glad to be serving on. Lieutenant Commander Bordas, your entire species is male, isn't it?
That is correct, sir.
Probably not a lot of arguments about leaving the toilet seat up and that kind of thing, right?
Mocklins urinate only once per year.
Really? I'm up 2-3 times a night.
That is unfortunate.
It is. Time to meet the locals. Hi, I'm Captain Ed Mercer. Holy crap! We don't mean your family any harm.
Well, we did just shoot his dad.
Aside from shooting your dad, we don't mean your family any harm.
Captain, there's a message coming in from Admiral Halsey. It says that an executive officer has become available.
No.
Crap. Sorry, man. You okay?
Yeah, it's all good, man. You okay?
Yeah, all good. Sorry.
All right, no worries.
The captain does not appear to be pleased at the arrival of his first officer.
They were married.
No way. You know how many times I tried to talk to you?
You weren't hearing me, or you weren't around at all, but I did try.
I was the one who suggested couples counseling.
The therapist was your brother-in-law.
This should be a really fun trip for all of us.
Perhaps we should not be talking about this.
Oh, no. We're talking about this. This is a thing.
You'll be delivering supplies to the science station on Epsilon 2.
Thank you for coming. We need protection.
Protection from what?
The krill. We have figured out a way to manipulate the speed of events.
So, it's an anti-banana ray.
It's really interesting.
We need no longer fear the banana.
Does it work on all fruit?
What about salads?
You do realize this could be used as a weapon.
That's why you're here.
Orders to Captain Mercer. Just detected a krill destroyer entering orbit.
Door's jammed.
Laura, you want to open this jar of pickles for me? I loosened it for you.
Return fire.
Give me the device, or I will destroy your ship.
Sorry, can you move like 2 steps to your right? It's just a lot of dead space there. Just perfect. Yeah, sorry, you were just very weirdly framed.
What?
What is that? Is that a beer?
Yeah, I'm nervous. It's a new ship. I want to make a good impression.
It's 9:15 in the morning.
Sorry.
Hey all, so the Monsters asked me to give my impressions and thoughts about Orville, the new Seth MacFarlane created show coming out this fall on Fox, executive produced by Jon Favreau, but it's just a name-dropping thing because he's only executive producing 1 episode, so whatever. Anyway, I'm excited about this because Seth MacFarlane's brand of humor does appeal to me. I know that generally speaking parody shows don't last very long. Let's just look at this past year's Powerless, but they can be damn funny, and I think that this might just catch on, and if it only lasts a season, that's fine. Because, again, Seth MacFarlane, in my opinion, he's a great creative writer. He had Family Guy, American Dad, hosted the Oscars, which was very strange. He's done TED. He's done a whole bunch of things, A Million Ways to Die in the West that wasn't that great, but his sense of humor, again, it's hit or miss, but I think and I hope that on the Orville it'll hit because it's familiar situations and scenarios done in an impossible situation on a sci-fi show with cool special effects. How could that miss? It's Galaxy Quest on television. It should be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. Again, though I don't predict it will last more than a season, but who knows? It might catch, and then it might just flop like terrible things. I don't know. But Fox is the, we'll try your idea for a season, and then we'll cancel your show, like with Serenity, like with Briscoe Kenny Jr., like with a whole bunch of shows. But at least you're getting your chance at MacFarlane because you kind of helped build that network, so do whatever you want. But anyway, that's my opinion and that's what I think about it, and I hope you have a good day, and take care. Thanks. Bye-bye now.
So, thank you very much for that, Mr. Gene. Let me give you a couple of thoughts now. Since right now we have about 13 episodes that are going to be produced, there's a lot of good directors that are going to be attached to this, aside from Jon Favreau, Seth MacFarlane. We're also getting Jonathan Frakes, Robert Duncan McNeil. We're also getting Brandon Braga, which I still will not forgive you for that graphic novel, and John Cassar, which I believe he was the executive producer for the original 24 and maybe still is with Legacy, that new series. So that's fine. I'm happy for that. The other side of this is that, as Gene mentioned, this is like another parody like what Powerless was, and he was correct. We barely got a season out of Powerless. So this is not the first time we haven't seen a parody show, or at least I'm going to go a little bit way back. We have shows like Futurama, even Tripping the Rift, that does poke fun at things like Star Trek and Galaxy Quest, which is a great movie on itself, which pokes great fun at that genre. But there was another series way way back. Back in 1977, right before Star Wars came out. And it was called Quark. Really? Yes, really. Now, this is not the exact same elementary particle and a fundamental constituent of matter. It's not the exact same quark that we love from DS9 or the dairy product made by warming soured milk to a range of 20 degrees to 27 degrees Celsius until a desired degree of curdling is met and then straining it. Did you know that? Did you? I didn't. Put that all aside. This is not that. So again, this came out in 1977. And the reason why I bring this up, because I'm thinking that the Orville is going to be this generation's Quark. So if you have any idea what I'm talking about, congratulations, because you may be the only one besides me that knows this information. So the reason why I bring this up is because, like Quark, it also did a lot of parodies on Star Wars, 2001, Lost in Space, Flash Gordon's, and of course Star Trek. So it's not that uncommon that we haven't had a parody on television. But what's odd about it, there's a lot of parallels with characters that are going to be kind of similar. Now, granted, you need to have a captain, an executive officer, and the list goes on and on. So it's not like the exact same thing. But the characteristics are similar. So with Seth MacFarlane playing Ed Mercer, who is the captain of the Orville, you know, he starts off talking with Admiral Halsey, who is Victor Garber in Legends of Tomorrow and, of course, Alias, about how he always wanted to be an explorer and how he was really gung-ho about this. And basically, the Admiral's like, you know what, just shut up. We just need bodies in the ships, and that's all we need about. You know, we're giving you another chance. That's all you care about. So his kind of hopes and dreams went down the toilet. Adam Quark, who is played by Richard Benjamin, is a commander who longs for a glorious and important assignment, but winds up being a trash collector. So, not that exactly captaining a ship is the exact same thing as a trash collector, but it kind of like has, again, similar patterns as far as who we're going to be relating to. Now, of course, there's always going to be a love interest. So on the Orville, we have Adrian Palicki, who is going to be playing the first officer, and the ex-wife of Ed, named Kelly Grayson. So on the Quark side, there was Betty 1 and Betty 2, known as the Bettys. And basically, these were the navigators and the pilots of the ship, but they are identical. So what's interesting is that Quark had love for one of them, but each one of them believed that the other is a clone and not themselves the clone. So he can never figure out who is the right one. So it was interesting. So what else do we have that's going to be similar? Well, we have the best friend. So if you know, like in Star Trek Enterprise, Archer had, you know, his best friend Trip, who was his chief engineer. So in Orville, we have Scott Grimes as Gordon Malloy, who is the helmsman. So he is going to be Ed's best friend, but on Quark, there is a best friend for Quark named Dink. Okay, so think of it as a blonde version of Cousin It. So he would also come to him for dating advice or members of, you know, just day-to-day stuff. Now, of course, there's the Doctor. I don't remember on Quark if there was a Doctor, so I'm not going to put Penny Johnson-Gerald, who, if you know her, she was Cassidy Yates on DS9, which I'm glad to see her back. But she's playing Dr. Claire Finn. Now, of course, like on Next Generation, you have a security officer like Mr. Worf, who's going to be basically your muscle. On the Orville, we have Peter McCone, who is playing Lieutenant Commander Bortus. So if you remember in the trailer, he's a single-sex species, and he only urinates once a year. So on Quark, we have a similar character named Gene, like in you, Gene, Gene. So whenever, it's referred to as a transmute. So whenever there's like a macho or a situation that requires violence or or bring yourself to be angry, Gene, the Gene side, comes out and basically takes care of the situation. And then the less dominant, or the more feminine version of Gene, Jean, comes out. So he plays that side. But again, it's also comprised in a single sex. So, again, similar. And in fact, if you look at Bortus, if it's an all-male species, someone has to be the female of that species in order to propagate. So the first thing that came to my mind is like, remember that episode in Farscape? I forget which one, but it's very prominent where you think it's a guy. It's like, no, I'm the female of my species, and it's not a very attractive guy either. But nonetheless, there it is. So again, you can argue that Gene is similar to Bortus. Now, we also have a robot on board, the Orville. We have Mark Jackson as Isaac. I'm sure he's named after Isaac Asimov. But for him as a machine, he doesn't really think much of biological life forms, but in the case, on Quark, we have Andy. So he's basically made out of spare parts. He's kind of cowardly and very neurotic. So, aside from the robot aspect, again, nothing original about robots, but again, you have a robot on the ship, just like Data is a robot, or an android, if you want to be more technical, on a spaceship. So again, I'm not saying that it's going to be like, hey, they ripped off Quark. I'm just saying a lot of the characters are similar in their characteristics. Now, there is Jay Lee, who plays John Lamar, who is the navigator of the Orville. I don't really have much in the way of who represent that position on the ship, other than the Bettys, as well as Halston Sage, who plays Alara Kitan. Basically, if you remember from the trailer, she basically is able to knock down this huge wall that was basically a door frame that was locked, but because of her strength on a lesser gravity world, she's able to do this. So there's not much in that. I will say, later in that scene, we are going to see gelatinous jello-like creature, and you heard Norm Macdonald, who's playing the character named Yaphet. And on Quark, we have Ergo. So he's also like a multi-eyed little blob-ish thing. So he's colorless and translucent. Again, very similar to Yaphet. And we had a science officer on Quark, but I don't know if there is a science officer on this Orville ship. And then, of course, the high brass, we had, again, Victor Garber playing Admiral Halsey. And on Quark, we had a character named by the name of Otto Bob Palindrome. So if you get the reference about the palindrome, basically it's a word or name that is able to be spelled forwards and backwards, hence the name Otto and Bob, because you can pronounce it the exact same way and spell it the exact same way, hence the name palindrome. So basically, they're very similar. He's a very stereotypical bureaucrat. They're very identical in every way. Again, I'm not making a claim that they're ripping each other off or whoever's doing what, but I just find it kind of weird that there's a lot of similar characters. Not original, but again, a lot of similar characters that we would see on any sci-fi show. But again, it just kind of came up on my radar, and that's what I had to bring up, so to speak. All right. So again, I'm happy for this, to see this happen, because again, Cosmos was great on with Neil deGrasse Tyson, which was amazing if you have not seen it, which was kind of odd for him to produce, but because he has an interest in science and space exploration, it made great ratings for Fox. So it's no wonder that Fox says, you know what, go ahead and do whatever you want, because, you know, you gave us American Dad, you gave us Family Guy, we want to make you happy. So, and hence why we got this. So I like his humor. Like Gene said, A Million Ways to Die in the West was not funny, or not. It could have been a lot more funnier than it should have been. So, not everything is a winner. Just like my podcast, not everything is comedy gold. It's not. But again, I'm really interested to see where this goes. I didn't laugh out loud at the trailer, but nonetheless, I'm interested in what he has to say. So, let's move on to Star Trek Discovery. Remember, I'm going to be playing the trailer first, Gene's comment, and then I'll come back to talk about my 2 cents.
Captain, where are we going? We have no map, and you can't set a course without a star.
It's hard to imagine. You've served under me for 7 years.
Commander Burnham.
I think it is time we talked about you having your own command. 2 to transport.
Great unifiers are few and far between, but they do come. Often such leaders will need a profound cause for their followers to rally around.
What am I looking at?
Object of unknown origin.
We've come all this way, Captain. It would be irresponsible to leave whatever that is unknown.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Computer. Enable igniter.
Captain, what signatures detected?
Contact Starfleet Command. We have engaged the Klingons.
You will never learn, Vulcan. Your tongue is too human.
I'm trying to save you. I'm trying to save all of you. We target its neck, cut off its head.
Starfleet doesn't fire first.
We have to.
My people were biologically determined for one purpose alone, to sense the coming of death. I sense it coming now.
Basically, this is CBS's first attempt to do an all-access kind of cable pay thing, which isn't a bad idea overall in my mind, because they don't make much money anymore. They used to make monies off advertiser, but now they make like less than 50% of their profits off of that. So they're trying to go into this new market. Good luck with that. I mean, you've got Netflix and everyone's used to that, but I'm not sure what the price point's going to be for access to this show and whether or not they will be able to have quality programming enough to support that. But that's besides the point. Let's move on to what I thought about the trailer. It's not bad. I wonder what kind of training programs you've got 10 years from Kirk. I think it's really beautiful that they go to this desert planet and they're just walking like a vacation, you know, and we're just having a heart-to-heart, you, the commander, me, the captain. And then, you know, they talk about it's time that you take command, maybe. I want to talk to you about that. And then the Discovery comes flying down from I'm guessing out of orbit, which really must have been really kind of difficult to coordinate. Like, okay, wait, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say this to her, and then just swoop down, and then we'll look at you for like 2 seconds. It'll be amazing, and then we're going to transport up, which is kind of weird to me, but okay. Really stylistic. Didn't mind that. It was all right. Otherwise, I don't know what I thought. I think the tech is awesome, and it's got near movie production values, it seems. It seems to be a weird mix of everything. You've got the uniforms that kind of look like Enterprise, which takes place 100 years before this, I'm guessing, maybe 90 years. And you've got the jetpacks from like the original motion picture. You've got the lens flares from the new show. You've got the bling-ons. It could go anywhere. I'm happy to see the diversity. I'm happy to see an Asian captain, although Michelle Yeoh's accent is kind of thick. I'm not sure we're going to understand what she's saying. But again, if it creates good drama, it's a familiar setting. Star Trek is iconic. It is fun, and we're going to get new stuff. I just hope that they're able to keep up and, again, give us amazing stories and characters and teach us more about this wonderful thing called life. You know, teach me lessons. That'd be awesome. Sci-fi lessons are really cool and interesting way to digest the world. Anyway, that's my review of this trailer. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you give Star Trek Discovery a chance when it comes out, if you can afford it. Otherwise, I don't know how you're going to do it. But anyway, hope you have a good one. Thanks and take care. Bye-bye now.
All right, so that was Mr. Gene giving his take on Star Trek Discovery. So, a couple of things that I wanted to focus on, but one that I will not, and I already talked about this before, is the CBS All Access paywall. I'm not going to get into that. I've already done that. We'll talk about that later on in the future, but for right now, I'm just going to focus on just the trailers, or just the trailer, not the trailers. Sorry. Okay, let's put this in this term. What I got out of this trailer, I'm going to need a lot of explanations. That's all that I can say for right now. I looked at this trailer, and rather than give you my initial knee-jerk reaction, I've watched it and watched it. I watch other people's commentary, dissect this trailer to bits. All I can say is that I need to have explanations. So I'm going to go in this with bated breath, having to wait so long to see a new Star Trek series. I'm not going to turn a blind eye, but I will be very critical of what I see on the screen. Let's start off with this. The uniforms. The uniforms themselves are similar to what we saw on Star Trek Enterprise, which is kind of like an evolution of the jumpsuit, but it has a little bit more rank differential color treatments. So it's a little bit more pronounced rather than the subtle little lines on the shoulder, which you can barely see against the blue. But here it's a little bit more pronounced. The other thing is that because we're looking at this series being 10 years before Kirk, Spock, and the Enterprise, the uniforms are completely different. But we had the last Star Trek Beyond movie in which their uniforms look similar to what we saw on the trailer. But we have to remember that the uniforms that we saw was from the U.S. Franklin, that is back when Star Trek Enterprise took place. So I'm trying to be not so hateful, but it doesn't work with what we're going to see in the original series. Not the 2009 movie, but the original Trek series. And that was what they were planning to do, is make this kind of connection. I don't see this being the Rogue One to Star Wars, like this is going to be the Rogue One to the original series. But nonetheless, what they can do is explain that this is a uniformed as it is transition. If you remember in Star Trek Generations, Next Generation had gone off the air, or just about off the air, but Star Trek Deep Space Nine was still on. So they had two different uniforms, but within that movie, you saw in the background, and even the characters themselves changed the uniforms throughout the movie. So that could happen. So you can explain that, why there's such a big gap in the uniform look. So again, explanations. You can explain it, I will buy it. The Klingons, you're going to have to explain why they look much different than the original Flathead Klingons versus the movie Star Trek version, the first movie, and all the Klingons since then have the more rigid and more pronounced foreheads, whereas this has a little bit more different garbs, and their head features are a little bit more, like as Gene pointed out, the Blingons. So, but at one point, one of the characters just, you can barely see the slit of his eyes, and his face is very off, and it just looks like a poop emoji. So I'm thinking these are like Klingons that we have never seen before. So there are a variation of Klingons, and they're doing some kind of ritual or some kind of... all I know is that I don't want to see this become like, oh, so that's where Kahless came from. No, don't do Kahless. This is the wrong time period for that. But explain to me why these Klingons look much different from what we've seen before. Now, the tech or the look of this is very reminiscent of the 2009 movie, the J.J. Abrams lens flare slick look with the bridge layout. And I'm okay to a degree if we were doing this after the 2009 movie, a la the Kelvin timeline. I would have been better and happier if that happened. But again, the ship that we see is the Shenzhou, but the Enterprise is a Constitution class, which is completely different, and it has nothing of that nature whatsoever. It is not as dark. It is a little bit more open. And I know when they did the NX-01 Enterprise, they tried to go for more a submarine look interior, and I was fine with that. But again, the transition looks too... it looks way past what we see on the TV screen for the original series. So again, if you had moved this to the Star Trek Beyond point and did the whole Kelvin timeline, and this is something that no one has addressed, is that because in the 2009 movie, things had changed. 2009, we lost Vulcan. Vulcan was destroyed. So that set things into a different course of history. So my argument would be that if we get a Next Generation or a DS9 or a Voyager, those characters may not exist, or if they do, they will be different because of what has happened. The ramification, like the Flashpoint paradox. Stuff that happens at one point in the past affects the future. So that, to me, that future does not exist. So technically, you can start over again, and I'm fine with that. But because they put this 10 years before, that look does not work. So, and as far as how this all plays out with Shaniqua's character as the first officer, we've seen this before in an episode called Lower Decks, in which it's the lower rank officers telling their story amongst the set of whatever events are going on. But here, it seems as if there's going to be a lot of focus on her, which is fine, and she is the commander. But it's not the first time it's the first time we haven't had that perspective. Sisko was a commander. And when he took over DS9, he was still a commander, and I think until season 3, he got promoted to captain. So it's not as if this is uncharted territories, except that we're going to get more of a diverse cast, which is great. So, as Gene put it, what can we learn about life through Star Trek? Let's see if that could be, and it should always be, the main goal of any Star Trek series, is to talk about what is going on right now, set in the future, but done in a way that you recognize elements of what is being talked about right now, but do it in a very interesting way to discuss that. So you have 15 episodes, because they bumped it up to 2 more. So 15 episodes, they have to tell, a good season's worth of good episodes, of good storyline, good character growth. So, again, I'm happy for Star Trek to come back, but watching this trailer, I have lots of questions, and this series has to do a lot of explaining how this all fits. So, and again, I can speculate that this ship was one of those that are so far out that they had a different set of wardrobes, different set of equipment. Okay. But why does in one scene when she's in the environmental suit look like the one from Star Trek The Motion Picture? When you see the crappy spacesuits that they had on the original series, it was god-awful. And I know you wanted to be more progressive, but again, you need to explain how you got to that conclusion. So, I'll leave it at that, because again, I can go to the nth degree, but when we cross that bridge later on and talk about the trailer, when we talk about the first episode, we'll get to that more in depth with hopefully 2 other podcasters that are going to be joining us with me and Mr. Gene. So I will keep you posted for that. Let me go ahead now, take a quick break, and I'm going to then come back and give you my thoughts about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4. Alright, so our last bit is going to be talking about, again, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4. One of the interesting things they did for this year was it gave us 3 different storylines, basically, little mini arcs within the full season, which was kind of interesting. Most of the time, you would get the 2, the one for the fall till the halfway mark, and then halfway mark till the end of spring or early summer. And here we had Ghost Rider, which was the first story arc, the Life Model Decoys, which is the LMDs, and then the last half, we get the Agents of Hydra. So, in the past, the Inhuman storyline has been problematic, because Disney at one point, if you remember, was going to make a movie back in for 2019, and then they canceled the project, but then they decided, hey, let's bring it to TV. But let's make the first 2 episodes into a movie which will be playing in IMAX, which is going to be in the fall. So that's still happening, and that's still part of the storyline to a degree, more so in the Agents of Hydra, which I'll talk about in a moment. One of the good things about this season was that Ghost Rider, Bobby Reyes, was a great character. And again, right from the very beginning that I talked about with the season opener, he's Latino. You don't get to see that. And he's playing a superhero of sorts. Granted, it's a spirit of vengeance, but still, it's really cool. And unlike a bike, it's a Charger. I'm okay with that. So there's lots to love about this. Did he steal the show a lot of the times? That was probably the only reason why I even continued watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because again, the storyline for them, everyone else was just, it's okay. I didn't care for Daisy being on the run. But whatever the case is, you stuck around just so you can see Ghost Rider. So from that point on, and I'm not going to go again point by point, episode by episode. This podcast is way too long already. But the LMD, which is the second part in which Ada, who was instrumental about overcoming her programming, and she tried to use the Darkhold, which Ghost Rider was trying to find in the first part of the series. She uses that and basically kills her creator, so to speak, but develops this whole virtual world called the Framework. So later on, we get to see everyone being replaced. May gets her moment of redemption, which is why, if you remember, I think it was in the second season, as to why she was called the Bus. She took out a girl who had powers, and she's always had that regret. So when Ada was able to find out that she would no longer fight within the Framework if she was the hero of that story. But then that world, that virtual world, became completely different. So when that arc ended, and you see this long shot of May in costume, and you see the Triskelion, I freaked, because then you see the symbol of Hydra on the building. That was fantastic, and I wish that's how season 4 ended. I really wish that was the ending, because that was a fantastic way to go. But since everyone was now being into the Framework, you have to now delve into that world, find the people that were part of S.H.I.E.L.D., help them regain their memory, find a way out of it, back into the real world. So by the time all that happened, and Ada was able to become more human, she was able to basically go beyond her programming. She was a full-fledged human, but she had inhuman powers. Again, working the inhuman angle side. But once that happened, Ghost Rider comes back, and the two of them, was not much of a fight, let me tell you. It went out just like the way Dr. Radcliffe went out. He was the last one basically in the mainframe, supposedly, and he's holding a drink. He's down by the beach, watching the sunset, and said, something to the fact about not going out in a bang, but with a whimper. But he never gets to say whimper or anything like that, because he disappears, the glass drops into the sand, and that's the end of his character. So it kind of felt like that. It felt very empty. I felt very, okay, that's it. All right, so Ghost Rider takes the Darkhold, spins an opening portal, so people are speculating that it's Kunlun that Iron Fist Danny Rand is from. But honestly, I thought it could have been so much better. The question that I have, and if you haven't seen it, but there is a spoiler that I will give you, Coulson becomes the Ghost Rider for a couple of minutes. I don't know why, but there's a price to pay that I guess Ghost Rider will be coming back for. I don't know what that means. Was I excited? No. I like Coulson a lot, and he does a lot of cool Coulson stuff, but it's been a struggle. It's been a real struggle to get through this. But again, the highlights for the season is Ghost Rider. So happy to see him there. Happy for a couple of moments in which it was brilliant stuff that are just like, you really are pushing this in a really good and exciting way. But then you're ending things on a so-so note. So again, I'll be watching this season 5, but coming again in January. So no more will we have a break, which will be a good thing. It'll be kind of just all the episodes are going to be one after another. So at least there'll be some kind of good consistency, because I think, as I'll talk later in other season finales, how these breaks are kind of hurting the momentum that they generate throughout the whole season. So, all right. So let me address this real quick. Since unfortunately when I've recorded this on my day that I worked on Sunday, is now Tuesday, I had to take some breaks in between doing this podcast. So in the process, Zack Snyder, his daughter, who was 20 years old, it was told in the news that she had committed suicide back in March, but he kept it as a personal matter. And he thought that by going back into work and finishing up the Justice League, that would help him get through this. But as things just did not work out, he basically is taking a leave of absence. Josh Whedon is coming in to finish up some reshoots and then finish up the rest of the post-production work. But I wanted to bring up the issue that the nerd has brought up, which I think is a good thing, is to take a moment to talk about suicide. It's a very hard situation for anyone to feel that they're alone, that what you're dealing with is so terrible, so unbelievably bad, that you have to take your own life. And I've been there too. I had a relationship with my ex-fiance back and right after high school. Things did not work out, and I lost myself. So I attempted, and I fought to stay alive. It's a very hard thing to feel that there's no help out there. Luckily, the love that I have for my parents got me through that. And I'm not saying that was the end and be all of depression, because I have bouts of depression at times. When I had been laid off, things got really bad and things started getting dark for me. But I was grateful because I have a family and I have friends and I had a lot of support to get through those times. So I want to give you, there is support out there. If, for no other reason, if you're enjoying this podcast, I want you to continue enjoying this podcast, because we have lots of stuff to talk about, and I would love to hear from you. But if you can't find it within yourself to go on and you're contemplating suicide, please take a moment and call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Their number is 1-800-273-8255. So again, I'm doing this out of respect for Zack Snyder, and I want to do something positive. Whether you agree with how well he directs a movie is irrelevant. If you know someone, please get them help. But if you're the one that needs the help, please get help. There's no reason to take your life. There is another way, a better way. And you will get through this. All right, so let me end the podcast. Thank you very much for listening to the show. You can always email me at monsterscifishow@gmail.com. Follow me on the various social networks as well as Instagram. Again, my Wonder Woman display is up and running, and it's a thing to behold. I'm very happy and pleased with it, so please give me a like on that. So with that, thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you for listening to the Monster Sci-Fi Show podcast. Sci-fi from a certain point of view. Good night.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network, your station for all things geek, classic, current, and beyond. Be part of the crew at ESONetwork.com.